on top of that one.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I've talked to people today. Let's see, 104,
Wow.
120 Palm Springs.
Oh my goodness. And it's not even summer technically.
No, and I don't know what Phoenix is today. I think they're going to crack over 122. So,
So it's good that everybody's joining us, because this is going to be talking about a unit that can do heating and cooling. And even though you weren't thinking about cooling, I bet you are now.
that's right. Heating and cooling.
All in one unit. It's a 2-for-1. It's still like we could be a sales rep. 2-for-1.
I think you should go on the shopping network.
Shopping network for a Mitsubishi or a Daikin or a Bosch or a.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you could go on. So 2-for-1 tonight.
Welcome everyone that's joined us. We're going to continue to wait for a few more people to join. Thank you for coming. Tonight we're talking about cold climate heat pumps for new buildings, but you'll learn a lot even if it's not for new buildings. So stay tuned to learn about all the things you see on this screen. And we'll wait a few more minutes. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, those are all the things we're talking about?
Oh yeah.
Oh, Dave does this every time.
Yeah.
My humor's
well,
getting,
and it's a good. Yeah. What's also a good point to say, how insulated is your home? Because I'm sitting. Let's see, where am I? I'm on my living room at a comfortable 74 degrees, and I have no air conditioning. And granted, I'm a middle townhouse, but I did really insulate and air seal it when I moved in. So there's something to be said about air sealing and insulation.
Yes.
Definitely, Mary. Very good point. Matt, can you just give me a thumbs up maybe when it's about 5:30, 5:32? I'm unable to see the clock when I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
It's 5:29.
Yeah, 5:30 right now.
Okay. So it looks like we have about 23 attendees. So that's about half of what registered. We're going to wait and just a couple more minutes and let a few more people join, and then we'll get started. Thanks everybody for joining us today.
If you want to put in the chat what your interest is, your reason for being here, that would be helpful and interesting.
Yes, definitely. So there is a Q&A box as well, or you can also go to chat. If you specifically want to ask a question for Dave to answer towards the end or during the talk, you can put that in Q&A. But if you want to let us know more what you're working on and why this webinar might be interesting to you, help us guide us a little bit, you could put that in chat and Dave will get to see that.
Or you can put your favorite ice cream too.
Yes. Or, you know.
Last time, favorite beer. Last time we were talking about your favorite moose tracks. No kidding.
Yes, I think last time we talked about beer. Moose tracks.
Favorite beer. Mm-hmm.
I like that too, Dave. Moose tracks.
Any ice cream right now would be good.
Well, to ensure that we kind of stay on time and we give people plenty of time to ask some questions, I'm going to go through just a few housekeeping items while more people are joining us. This is being recorded so that folks later can listen to this. Thank you, Matt, behind the scenes, for helping us with the recording and just the handling of Zoom. This is sponsored today by a variety of people. You can see there on the left of your screen. The Climate Action Collaborative locally here for Eagle County communities, the Colorado Energy Office, CORE, the Community Office for Resource Efficiency, Energy Smart Colorado, which is an organization you'll find all over our high mountain areas, Garfield Clean Energy, Holy Cross Energy, which is our local electric co-op here, and Walking Mountain Science Center. My name is Nikki Moline. I'm the Energy Programs Director at Walking Mountain Science Center. We are happy to host this webinar for you today. And before we get started, I want to introduce Mary Weiner to you, who works with Holy Cross Energy, and she's going to tell us all about our instructor. So I'll hand it over to you, Mary.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So I run the energy efficiency and electrification programs for Holy Cross. So if you have questions, anything, my contact information will be at the end. But can you go to the next slide? Aha, I don't have this memorized. So Dave's in hot Boulder, 97. So there's no difference between here and there, I guess, right now. But he comes to us with this amazing experience. He's actually helping. I work a lot with Dave statewide with program trying to reduce our carbon footprint. And Dave has been really instrumental in helping us get there. And I hope you have a lot of good information to learn about exactly what is a heat pump, a mini split. They come with many names, but Dave has like an MS in geophysics. I never even had this class. That impresses me amazingly. But he also now owns the NTS Energy. And so he's kind of an HVAC and solar consultant. And so he's really done a lot of research on heat pumps. This is going to be the trend going forward. So if you are considering building a new home right now, I think heat pumps is going to be your answer. So without further ado, Dave, why don't you take it on? And then Dave's contact information will also be on the slides. And we will be sharing, because I know you all are asking that, we will be sharing the slides and the recording. So everybody that registered will get a follow-up email in a week or so.
That's right. Thanks, Mary. As long as you enrolled, you're going to get a link to the recording and the slides. Dave, I want to just tell you a couple of things that were in chat if you didn't get to read them right before you get started here, and feel free to share your screen anytime. One person says we're building a home at 9,200 square feet and wondering if this technology makes sense. Not square feet, sorry. We're building a home at 9,200 feet and wondering if this technology makes sense. We want a floor radiant heat. Oh yes, our builder says it is suspect on cold days. And then we have another one that says interested in heat pump for a radiant floor lower level and forced air first level. So just some ideas there for you as you get started.
All right.
Take it away.
Thank you, everyone. So today I'll put it up front. We have 32 slides. If I'm fast, it's 30 minutes. If I'm slow, it's about 35 minutes. We're going to go through how heat pumps work very briefly. We're going to talk about what cold climate heat pumps are, because that's really the thing that makes them work in Colorado. We're going to talk about the types of systems. Then we're going to get into strategies and the way to think about your home and how you might use heat pumps to take care of your needs. And then we're going to talk about the process. So how do you get a good system for your home? How do you make sure it's going to do what you need? And you're going to hear from contractors. Trying to advance. Oh, wrong way. Okay, so let's talk first about what a heat pump is. So the main thing is you have to think heat pumps move heat. They do not create heat. So it's very efficient to move heat. And it's not temperature. So the thing is, if you're outside and it's minus 10 degrees and you think it's cold, there's lots of heat. If it was minus 460, that's absolute zero, no heat. I think the way to think about it is if you go out at minus 10 and you're cold and you come back in an hour later, you go out at 10 degrees, it feels warmer. That's the heat. So let's talk about how this works. And really an air conditioner is a one-way heat pump. So it's really like a heat pump that only goes backwards. What happens, this is what goes on inside the house, and this is what goes on outside the house. So let's say this is the inside unit, and the refrigerant is really the magic to this. Refrigerant comes out, it's given up its heat, it's kind of a cool gas. It goes through something called an expansion valve. It means it's just given more room to expand. What happens when it expands? It cools down and becomes a liquid, and it's cold. It's below zero. It's probably minus 20 or so. So it goes into the outdoor unit, and because it's cold in the outdoor air, it absorbs heat. And with the air conditioner, it's blowing the fan across. In that case, it's getting rid of heat. Here, it's absorbing heat, turns it into a warm gas, comes in. And now here's where some of the energy's added. Wish we didn't have to add any energy, but it needs to be up in here. It needs to be about 110 degrees. So depending on how much heat it absorbs, you use some compressant, compress it into a warm gas. It comes into the indoor unit, which is going to look, it's either an air handler or a furnace. It's got a coil at the top. It gives up the heat through the coil. The air is blowing across, and it heats your house, and the cycle starts again. And there's a reversing valve in here. It just flips and cools in the summer. Now, this is the important thing. A lot of people say, well, heat pumps don't work in Colorado. And you might hear that from contractors. And I'm not saying now they're being a lot more nuanced in terms of where they're talking about. But classic heat pumps versus cold climate heat pumps. Heat pumps have been around for a long time. So this technology is not something whiz bang new. But they were made to not work at outdoor temperatures below 32. They just weren't appropriate for Colorado. Everyone just used gas furnaces. Around 2005, in parts of the US, New England in particular, upper Midwest, gas prices started to go up. And a lot of people who in Japan also, in Europe, they realized heat pump, there was no limitations on what heat pumps could do. There's no core thing why they couldn't work colder. So there a lot of work started to go into it. And though it was difficult, in a way it was easy because there's lots of components in a heat pump that can be improved. Everything from the fan blades to the compressor, to the coils, how much heat's exchanged, to the refrigerant. So there's all kind of engineering things that could be worked on. And so they worked on those. And over the last 10 years, there's been really thousands of installations in cold climates throughout the US and Canada, New England, across the Midwest, in Colorado, some up in Canada. So it's a well-established technology, and now it's actually designed to work in our climates. And you can see our climate zones vary from 4 to 7. The only other state that has this many climate zones is California. So we have a wide variety of climate zones. So I'm going to use terms as I go through the talk. And when I talk about heat pumps from now on, I might not say cold climate every time, but I'm always referring to cold climate. So tons is heating and cooling. Tons is not this dude with weight. 1 ton is 12,000 BTUs per hour of heat. And most homes are in the range of 3 to 6 tons. SEER, or EER, SEER is seasonal energy efficiency rating. Anyone who's bought an air conditioner, looked at air conditioners, know that's what they're rated. They go basically from 15 to 24, and 24 is half the energy of a 12. So if you still have a really old air conditioner, 12, if you replace it and you have a big cooling bill, excuse me, thinking of cooling makes me sneeze. It's worth thinking about putting in a heat pump. And then the heating season performance factor is heating a higher number or better. I'll talk about that next slide. And the other way to look at efficiencies is coefficient of performance. And furnaces are COP about 0.9 to 0.95. That's 95% efficient. Electric strip heat is 1, or baseboard or furnace. Air source heat pumps are around 3. A 2 COP uses half the energy of a 1. So these are the terms that we're going to talk about to compare heat pumps to all the conventional ways. So they put all this effort in, and what's the result? How does it help? Well, this is that heating season performance factor. It goes from 0 to 14, getting better. And this is around 2012 to 2020. And the blue is this HSPF. And every 2 years, they had a jump in efficiency of the system. And this is the efficiency gain. So right now we're in 2020. This is the best, but most manufacturers, this is the sweet spot, 10 to 11. Most manufacturers, the cold climate heat pumps have efficiencies, the good ones in this range. So that's kind of where you're going to be looking at. And the efficiency gain, notice it's been about 30% since 2012. So that efficiency gain translates directly into heating savings. The second thing about it was they have to be designed to work in cold climates. And working in cold climates means if it's cold out and it's rainy and icing, they have to be able to defrost. So they put in defrosting cycles in the system. The other thing is they have to be able to work when it's cold. And this is outdoor temperature, 60 degrees on the right side. It's the bottom, 0 on the left side. And on the vertical is the amount of heating for a house. And this is like a typical 5 ton. So maybe a 2,500 square foot house, very rough. So notice the green line is how much heat you need as it gets colder. Now, most cold climate heat pumps, they're rated up near 40, 50 degrees. A long time ago, classic heat pumps, you would get to about 30. Look at how it's dropping off, and they really couldn't heat below this. Not only couldn't they defrost, they really didn't have any capacity. So over the last 10 years or so, they keep improving how much heat these cold climate heat pumps can put out when it's very cold, between 10 and 20, between 0 and 20 degrees. And notice now, this top one, basically they start to tail off, but even some of the mini splits and other ones hold their capacity all the way below 0. So now you have the ability to put in a system and really do nearly all your heating. I'll talk about this little triangle in a bit. So those are the two big things: efficiency and capacity, ability to heat when it's cold. So what do the various systems actually look like? So you've got this traditional whole house ducted systems. And basically there's going to be two options you have with configurations. You have heat pump with called an air handler, which if I refer to it like the all electric option. So you have the outdoor unit here, and then you have it's connected to an indoor unit. Looks like a furnace. The difference is no burner. It's got a coil for heating and cooling. It's got a fan. It's got communication boards. It's got a little bit of electric strip as kind of an auxiliary secondary source when it gets very cold. We'll talk a bit about how those things work. And then the other option is a hybrid with a furnace, heat pump, furnace, same situation. And I call that the hybrid system. Another really something that was evolved over the last 15 years, mini split heat pumps. These are great, sometimes called ductless. The advantage of these is no ducts. Architects a lot of times love these systems because you don't have to take up living space. You know, it's nice for design. So you have an outdoor unit. They usually these are a little different style. They're more of a rectangle than a square box. And you can hook up to typically up to 4 indoor units, and you just run refrigerant lines into those units. Now, the beauty of this is you've got different types of ways in the rooms depending on what you like. So you've got these flat ceiling units. You've got units that can go on the wall. You've got units that can go on the floor. And you've even got units that can be up in the ceiling that are called duct. They're little mini ducts. They're like very thin units, and you can have just short little hidden ducts off of them. And so they look like just a vent. So that's a really nice combo to use too. So you've got these indoor options that you can tune to the aesthetics of your house and how you like it. Oh, my arrows don't work sometimes. There we go. Now, for radiant, there's an option with called air to water heat pumps. So what you do is, and you have an outdoor unit, and it comes in and it brings in water to a domestic hot water tank. And there's different configurations. You can have the outdoor unit, have all the refrigerant inside of it, and it basically pulls water in, or you can have outdoor unit, indoor unit to the domestic hot water tank. Basically, it provides hot water. And in the high country, often, most of the time, you're going to pair it with your boiler. So the heat pump's going to do down to a certain outdoor temperature, provide the heating, and then you're going to have the boiler. This will work. This is very important, and I'll talk about this in a later slide. You have to have very good underfloor heating design to make sure you get the most efficiency, not only out of your heat pump, but out of your boiler system. Because you can design, there's many ways to design radiant, but with efficient design, you're going to gain 10, 20%. So those are kind of the options. So now you're looking at your new home and you've got more options. Before you'd say, well, I'll go to a furnace. Now you've got, you can do an all electric heat pump, or you can do a heat pump combination. You had electric baseboard. Now you can do a mini split heat pump. You had a boiler with in-floor radiant. You can do a boiler heat pump well, there's another option to combine these I'll talk about. And then obviously in the mountains in the past, air conditioning really wasn't needed, but it appears, given the trends, that more and more folks are going to want to have some air conditioning, so they already have it in it. So when you're considering systems, and I already came on the chat about the types of systems that you want, whether it's air or radiant, and I just want to talk a little bit about how comfort levels are converging. And so this isn't really to sway you one way or the other. This is just to show you that basically radiant was, premium, but the air strategies are really catching up, mainly just because there was more things to improve on the air system. So this would be the system characteristic. And, when I had a company doing this stuff, we did tons of radiant, and, these were the things that were important to folks. First of all, air quality. They say radiant's great. I don't have blowing dust and dirt. And the old air system, you would have that because you really wouldn't have much filtering. And you basically had one blower speed, go or no go. So that, the air coming out of the system would be high velocity, it would be blowing stuff around. But now you have really a lot of range of filtering options. So in fact, lately with the smoke and stuff, you can do electrostatic, you can do HEPA, you can do all levels of you can do charcoal filtering combinations. So, and you can integrate a heat recovery ventilation system, which I'll talk about that later. That's important that you do that no matter what you select, if you have a really tight new home. Very important. Sound wasn't, an issue, little or no noise before, blasting fans, air noise at the vents. Now we have these amazing fans that adjust continuously. And basically a lot of these heat pumps, they just run at really, really low speeds all the time. You don't really even notice them in the house to keep it constant. Energy efficiency, it's catching up. Basically, you've got these fans, but the other thing that really came into play is, and a lot of this has to do with building codes, basically really good ducts, like no more leaks in the ducts. The ducts are sealed, insulated ducts. So you're not losing heat energy as the air moves around. And then with the heat pumps together with that, it's super high efficiency. And finally, the thermal comfort, room by room zoning. And before, you'd have one thermostat in the house. Now, typically, if you're going to get a good system, and now this is the air side, radiant side, many zones, you want at least minimally one zone per floor. Typically, you're going to have 2 zones per floor, depending on your house size. And also, the other thing is the systems are really smart now. It used to be if you set the temperature to 70, it would have to go to 68 before it would turn on, or 72. And so a wide zone. Now they hold a half a degree. So they basically come on and off and really hold it. So when you're thinking about things, you might want to think about these options. And a lot of people are thinking about, well, what part of my house do I want for each of these types of systems? So the first thing you're going to go out and a lot of you are, I think, in the process of building homes. The number one thing with regards to this is, am I going to have gas available? So the builder's going to, either it's not available at all or uneconomical. And uneconomical is varying to everyone, what's the pain point? I'm saying I just put in greater than 10K for gas line. To me, that's kind of an interesting point, because that pays for a lot of equipment. So the traditional, when you're thinking about this, is I'm going to put a propane on site. First of all, it's lower cost than running an all electric for space heating or water heating. I can do propane cooking. I got my fireplaces. I can do my backup generator. So it was kind of like, hey, this is the way to go. But things have kind of flipped a bit because all these new technology options. Heat pumps are now lower operating costs and heat pump water heaters. And you do have other options indoors, though, the main thing is the heating and the water heating. You got some more backup options with solar and without solar, batteries. They're not quite as, long-term robust as generators. So I don't think they're going to totally replace that. But the main thing is you can eliminate or really reduce the size of your propane tank. And people are doing that. Well, okay, I'm going to go heating with a heat pump strategy, but I still want to do my other cooking and stuff. So that's some thinking around that. So what does that mean when you look at, we're talking heat pump versus propane or electric? And for those of you who are wondering, I'm going to get to gas in a few slides. So, so electric heating, HSPF of 3.4, heat pumps around 10.5, 68% less electrics, 50 to 70% on your heating bill, no matter what the electric cost is. I mean, it's just that much more efficient. The technology is that much better. Propane furnace, it's better to compare COP and 0.95, a heat pump of 3. So it uses about 1/3 the energy. Now here it's a little bit depends on the prices, but it's with propane at the sort of low end of winter prices in December, before the last bump, it was 50 to 60%. So I think, this is probably a floor. You would see more if propane went up for a winter, and electric, is a little more stable. So big advantages on savings. And let's get a little specific just to give you an example. So you're looking at your house, and this is around a 2,400 square foot house, just a rough estimate. So you'd have you could put in a propane furnace. This is what annual heating costs. You can put in a hybrid system, drops it about $2,000. You can put a all electric system, and obviously this amount of propane. In these cases, basically the hybrid system, the heat pump's running to about 15 degrees, and then the furnace would help a bit. That's about 80% heat pump or more. All electric, it's basically going to be similar. The heat pump's running about 80 to 90%. A little bit of electric in the fan coil will help, and the air handler, sorry. So you have a choice, and these costs, the costing, as you all probably know if you've got quotes, is widely variable. I'm trying to just get some ballpark, and the idea behind this is relative costs. So the furnace, if you just did a furnace, this would be if you put an AC on it. Here's if you did a heat pump and a furnace. And here's if you did an all-electric heat pump and air handler unit. And so you can see with some nice rebates, all electric, Holy Cross gives a really nice rebate, but versus putting in cooling and heating, it's immediate. In the case of, I'm just going to go with the furnace versus the heat pump, you're in about 4 to 6 years. So, you're investing in the long run. Basically, you're going to get a lower cost thing. What about radiant infloor? And now that this is with propane, so the savings or electric, this is going to be similar saving. There's a couple different options that you can think about. And the hybrid boiler system option, and I'll have a cost comparison slide of that. But the other thing that a lot of people are starting to do is they're looking at their houses, almost two separate houses. And they're saying, well, in the main living areas where I spend a lot of time, I want radiant. In the other areas where I want cooling or more heat recovery or fresh air or filtering, I'm going to go with some air, and it can be a heat pump. I'll use a classic example, pretty common, like main floor, main living area, radiant, second floor, or the bedroom wing if it's 1 story. I'm going to do heat pump for cooling and fresh air. I'll do a little radiant in my bathrooms. So I've got the second floor, very efficient, cost saving with the heat pump, first floor radiant. So I've sort of got the best of both worlds, trying to make my money go as far as I can. And the other option, if you're getting this is really for smaller homes, you can actually do a standalone air to water heat pump system. Their output, they don't make huge units of this, and that's why it's a little bit constrained. You could put 2 or 3 of them instead of a boiler, but that's why bigger homes, it's the hybrid is maybe the strategy to go. So this is what it might look like. Same kind of house, around 4,200 for heating. This is the propane boiler, and notice we're going to do a little less with the heat pump, and we're going to save about 33%. The reason we're not saving quite as much is the heat pump can't do as much of the heating, and the water ones are a little less efficient. But electric boiler, notice big savings there, 42%. And then you run the numbers. If we're just going to do a boiler, and then this would be boiler with a heat pump, electric boiler. So with the rebate, if you go all electric on this, you've got 4 to 5 years, a little more here. Now, of course, if you're going to add air conditioning to this boiler setup, you know, the heat pump strategy, especially the mini split strategy, will be more cost effective to go that route. So I would consider that option. So a lot of you, probably most of you, are saying, well, fine, what about natural gas? Okay, natural gas costs less to heat than a heat pump at current prices. And it's been, as everybody knows, it's been low for a long time. I don't know what the future is going to be, and nobody really does. But if that's the case, what are the advantages of incorporating heat pumps into your thinking? Why even consider it? Well, there's a couple reasons. One is some of you want an all electric home, you know, for various reasons: indoor air quality, emissions, safety. And so you're going to, if you want that, you have all those advantages. You'll have to pay some more for heating, unless you have a smaller home, in which case these monthly gas fees of connection, Excel, I think, is 16 a month. I'm not sure what it does up there. That savings offsets a lot. So for smaller homes, it's pretty much a break even. But for the bigger homes, there's other advantages. And one thing is it's insurance. So I'm going to get cooling, and I got a little bit of it. I got insurance against unexpected changes in gas prices. And, you know, I don't really know what's going to happen. I just know that things tend to be surprising and a bit unstable over the 15 years you're going to own this. The best example is with the Texas situation. If you look at some gas pricing now, it's like double what it was. That's probably temporary, but you also have the option to decrease your natural gas use. So you have this tool. If you want to lower your impact, you want to balance it out, you've got that, and you get cooled. So, and let's look at how you can do this. So you're gonna build your house, and you're gonna, you know, should I spend extra money or not? I don't want cooling. Well, here's some of the things you can do. So what you can actually do is set the temperature about where you change over from heat pump to gas. And the thing about heat pumps is they're very efficient at higher temperatures. So this shows you, if you had the contractor come in and install this system, and you said, well, okay, gas is this price now. I'm going to have the heat pump go to 45 degrees. Here's if it went down to 35. Here's if it went to 25. This is how much I would reduce my gas use. This is all electric. And this is how much it would cost for heating. So depending, you might say, well, I kind of want to use less gas. I'll pay a little more. The funny thing is, I ran some numbers. I didn't have time to put it in this. If I use the current prices of gas after this jump, this number went up about 50%. These numbers went up a bit, but it turned out this was like 1,600. Now this is like 1,350, and this is like 1,500. So actually, if the prices hang for the next winter, I mean, I wouldn't jump month to month, but then, you know, it would make advantage to do this. So the initial cost, if it's versus against furnace, you know, obviously it's more, but versus air conditioning, it's really, prices are on the same order. So you've got this insurance tool, there's no reason, honestly, to buy air conditioner versus a heat pump. And a lot of you talked about radiant in-floor heating. There's a couple strategies. You can do this, and this is a kind of a repeat, that you can do this split strategy of one part of the house with heat pumps, the other part. You can combine the heat pump with a gas boiler. But whereas with propane and electric, you save a lot of money, you're not going to save money in that case. So just, you know, you can do it, but you want to be motivated for other reasons to have that scenario. And if you are, I would recommend it. But if your expectation is adding that to greatly lower my cost, you know, that's not, I don't want to mislead you to believe in that. A lot of people ask about now more, you know, how can I help? I don't want to do as much emissions. This is just to show how that's happening. And there's a lot of emphasis on that. So this is on the left side is the emissions from any of these heating things on a typical house. I think I used 2,400 again. This is a car. So a lot of people are going out and trading in their cars for electric car. This is how much you would save. So this gives you an idea. So electric resistance, this is 2020 Holy Cross with 44% renewable. We know Holy Cross is going to achieve working toward 100% 2030. Excel 80% 2030. So I've used 80% in a few years. So how does this change? Well, electrical resistance goes way down. I would not recommend going with it. Price will not go way down. Cold climate heat pump dramatically drops. The gas and propane systems, tiny bit less. You can't really see it. They do use a little electric for the fan. Hybrid systems also drop way down because we're really using 80% of the heat pump and only a little bit of gas. So if you care about this, compare with solar, this is you know, an important fact. So let's talk about, I'll speed up a little bit, acquiring a good heat pump system. And this is really important because you want to get a good system. So we're going to go through some of this stuff. So selecting a contract, I would highly recommend first talking to the local resources at the end of this page. Mary, Nikki, all these groups have really got their antennas out. They know who's doing heat pumps. And friends, you can look at websites. And when you talk to them, you got to say how many have installed. Like your builder's going to have a couple of favorite HVAC contractors. But if they're not really familiar with cold climate heat pumps, you know, you're going to have to work with somebody else and get your builder on board. And I would get a couple quotes if they're far apart, then get a third. If they're close, they're probably good. This takes quite a bit of work to do this. You know, modern system design for your own home is a lot different than the past where it was just eyeball it up and throw a certain size. This is probably surprises people more than any slide because it's cold up there and you think, wow, I use most of my heating energy and cost comes when it's cold. This is, the bottom is 60 degrees down to -20. And this is how much percentage of use of your energy use in each of those bins. So most of the heating is in this big block, 15 to 30. And notice below about 10, it's only really 10%, very little. So really the beauty of cold climate heat pumps is they can really take this whole thing. You know, they're going to work in tandem with a little bit of electric in here. Whereas old heat pumps could just do this. So that's really the difference in a nutshell. So the first thing is your contractor has to use manual J. So if you remember one thing, remember manual J. And also in the high country, the equipment, the air's thin, it needs to be upsized or derated. Any contractor working up there should do this, but you might query. So this is, again, you saw this before. This is outdoor temperature, 60 degrees to 0. My green line is how much heat my house needs. This is option 2. And when they design, they'll look at this and say, whoa, gosh, in this area, I'm way below. That's not a good design. I need to get a higher size heat pump. And they'll look at it. Now this one drops off. This orange area means whatever I'm pairing it with, an air handler, a little furnace, I'm going to use a little bit. But remember, this is only about 10%, very, very little. So this is a pretty good match. You don't necessarily want to get something that's way up here. You're going to pay extra too much money. So here's the questions. Give me, what's the cost for my options? What prices did you use for gas, propane, or electricity? And if it's paired with electric or a propane, especially gas too, but gas is, inexpensive. At what outdoor temperature does it switch from the heat pump to the other? And it should be 15 degrees or lower. And how much heating is done by the secondary source? This is really important because any complaints that we get from people saying, my bill is crazy high. It's 80% of the time, it's this. The design was such that this number was like 25 or 30, and all of a sudden this number is 40 or 50%, and the bills are much higher than they should be. A good system, you want to know HSPF, confirm that it's a cold climate heat pump. It's got to be a matched system. They'll know about that. In other words, you can't have a low quality heat pump and a high quality furnace or vice versa. Your utility rebates, ask about the noise. They're quieter, but ask about that. And what's the warranty? This is important, particularly a compressor warranty. So duct system, I'll touch on this. Really important. They got to be sealed. You have to insulate them in unconditioned spaces. Most building codes require good duct systems now. But if it were me, when they put the duct system in, if you're going this way, I would go out and take a look around and make sure. The difference in heat pump is the temperature is lower than furnaces. So they need to be sized correctly. And also they got to be reasonable lengths and insulated. So it helps. You can ask them about what's the duct system sizing like? How are you, what are you doing for heat pumps? And then zoning, I talked about that before. Mini splits are fantastic. A couple things is you have to, and this you can ask the contractor, did you derate or compensate both the inside and outside units for sizing? They work really cold. They go all the way down to -13, and they need to. And you want to have sort of reasonably balanced rooms, like you can set. You don't want big zones and little zones. The other thing is you typically in this strategy heat the bathrooms and other little rooms with small baseboard or in floor. You can't afford to put one of these units at every single room. A lot of you want to know about radiant. There's really two key things. Is they got to make sure that the output of the unit at temperature and elevation is what's the heating BTU output of these units. And the other is you have to do it in conjunction with your radiant in-floor design. So in the past, and even today, there's always discussion, radiant in-floor design. Do I design that the floor has to be the water in the tubes 120 degrees to keep the building heat? Or do I use 110, 105? Because the lower the temperature, the more piping you have to put in. But with heat pumps, notice if I do water temperatures around 95, that's into the unit, so about 105, 10. So it makes a big difference. I'd recommend no more than 110. So somewhere between 100 and 110. 95 would be ideal, but typically people won't design for that. So the COP, the lower, the less efficient. So that's important. And you also want to find out, okay, what's the changeover temperature for the hybrid system? And everyone should note there's a few products that combine with these. There's an appendix that details about it. Running out of time, indoor air quality. Here's the thing. These houses are so tight. We used to open windows. They used to be leaky. If they're really tight, they're not healthy. You're going to want to put mechanical ventilation. It's called HRV. You can add it to the furnace. If you've got ducted, it works with the furnace great. Or if you don't, you set these up as independent systems or in conjunction with your bathroom fans. But given the heat, given the cold, the smoke, tight houses, you really want to have some way mechanical quality. I don't want to spend too much more time. Basically, you can read this slide, you'll get it. It's like, make sure they're going to do a good job on the outdoor unit. I don't want to shovel this thing out for heating. I don't want to have this mess. I think the main thing is make sure it's high enough. Make sure it's high enough. So make sure that. So the summary, cold climate heat pumps are designed to work in cold climates. If you're building your new home and your only choices are off electric, propane, it's almost, you're going to save a lot. The mini splits in combo with radiant. as a great heat system or heat pump in combination. I think the idea is to have an open mind and, you know, really, you might have to push your builder and your HVAC contractor a bit. And hopefully go through some of those hints to get a good system. And think of your contractor as your partner. And the last thing is talk to the experts in your area. Nikki, Mary, they're in this every day. And the last thing I'll put in the plug is worked on this site. It's not mine. It's this organization, Beneficial Electrification. If you go to this, you can look at videos of how heat pumps work. There's just a lot more details if you really want to dig into the details. And here's all the folks.
Thanks, Dave. Real quickly, I want everyone to note on this slide, these are the local people that can help you. Holy Cross Energy is there at the bottom. Like I said, there are local electric co-op, and Mary's here. She can answer some more of your questions as we continue on along with Dave. But just to point out, Holy Cross Energy does have rebates for new construction when putting heat pumps in new construction. So make sure you're reaching out to them if you're interested in some rebate information. And all these other entities can help you find rebates for both new construction and existing buildings. So if you're thinking about anything that has to do with heat pumps, don't hesitate to contact us. And before is always better. Then we can make sure you'll qualify for rebates. Mary, tell us more about what's required to qualify for a heat pump rebate.
Yeah, I will. So everybody, whether you're building new or you're retrofitting, I know a lot of people are asking, it's so darn hot, can I just add cooling? And you can. And if you're just going to use the heat pump, you guys know them as a mini split for cooling, will offer $100 per ton. So if you're going to use it for heating, it's got to be used for at least 80% primary heat. And the HS, we've talked about the heating seasonal performance factor, needs to be 10 or greater. And what we're seeing a lot lately are standard heat pumps are being installed instead of the cold climate. So I cannot stress enough, if the installation is not done correctly, these things will not work properly. And that's where some of your contractors are coming back saying they don't work. It's because they weren't installed. Dave explained how the trend's really gone up. So we just want the HSPF 10 or greater. We want you to do some kind of load calculation. So if your contractor says, well, this house, it's 1 ton for every 450 square feet, that's old school and we don't accept that. You have to show load calculations, and there's really easy software to do that, because we look at your windows, what exposure you have on those windows, your level of insulation. So that all goes into what size your equipment is. And years ago, we were oversizing everything. So we want to see how you came up with the size of your unit. And then you want to make sure they're off the ground. If you put these heat pumps on the ground, you're not going to be happy with that. So there's just a lot of information. We're happy to help you. As Nikki said, call us before you spend and sign the contract. It's best to get some advice from us before you've already signed a contract.
Thanks, Mary. I encourage everyone to enter your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and start asking Dave some questions. Mary's going to jump in and read some of them. So please ask away. We have a few more minutes left, and we'd be happy to help you with your individual situations if you have those. So here's a question, Dave. I have a home in Wildridge facing south, which was built in 2000. Just so you know, Dave, Wildridge is kind of above Avon on the north side of the interstate. Summers are getting hotter, and I'm looking for an energy smart way to cool my home. Although this is not a new home build, I want to learn about heat pumps, in parentheses mini splits, so I can begin asking for estimates to install. So anything you can speak to regarding that?
So I think, well, the first thing is think about what kind of heating do you currently have? Is it radiant or whoever's got that? Well, anyway, I'll answer. So I think what you want to do is, if you're thinking of parts of the house that need cooling and mini splits, so think about how many rooms and think about those. Look on the sites and think about where you would want, whether you want wall units. If you've got an attic above, you could put those ceiling units in, or you can even put like these little ducts that are hidden. So think about what rooms and what units you want in, and try to keep the number of units down. I mean, it costs every time you add another indoor unit, it's going to cost more. So, and then the other thing is think about where outside you might want to put your outdoor unit. You want to try to keep it not on the north side, but you also, you know, you don't want to put it under bedrooms or near windows where you open them or near things. So think about that. And then when you call the contractor, you have an idea. They can come in and you can say, this is my priority, you know, these 3 rooms or these 2 rooms. And I would recommend you need to get the cold climate versions. Oh, so
No, it's
go to
cooling
this
only.
slide.
She's asking for cooling. So that's something to think about if I can interrupt a little bit. So when it's so hot right now. We've never seen this, right? June, not even summer yet. So number one, I would ask you to look at whether you have a furnace or a boiler system. What is the age of that system? Is that system, your furnace or your boiler, getting at the end of life in the next 5 years? So if you're going to have to replace that in the next 5 years, now's the time to start, and you want cooling. So start thinking about, well, maybe a heat pump could do both heating and cooling, and I should just do that now before my boiler or furnace dies. So end of life equipment is a great time to start thinking about heat pumps. If you just want to do it for cooling, Dave is right. The prices, you know, I've seen anywhere from 4,000 to 7,000 per indoor unit. So you want to minimize how many units or how long they have to go from the outdoor unit to the indoor units. Those are 2 copper lines, and copper
And I
has
would just
really gone
interrupt
up
you
in
quickly,
price.
Mary. It looks like she has electric baseboard heating.
Okay, so that's
So it's a mini split.
beautiful
So it's
for
a
heat.
ductless system. Yep,
Yeah.
it's a ductless
And it's-
system, and you can reduce your heating bill by at least 50%.
Yeah, you want to, so you'll turn the baseboard off in those rooms. Now, a couple things to think about. If it's the second floor and you have an attic above, these little slim ducted units can go up there and you can get 2 rooms, 2 adjacent rooms out of 1 indoor unit. So that's like a really important way to save some money. The other one is, you know, don't forget about opening doors and stuff. I mean, if it's bedrooms, that's one thing, but if it's sort of these areas where you could put 1 unit in a hallway or something and cool 2 or 3 rooms or heat 2 or 3 rooms. So really think about that. And, you know, if you want, I'm open to, well, I think you get the local resources, but if you want to send any of us a sketch of your second floor or something, I'm sure any of us would be willing to say, yeah, I think maybe this or that. So that's another option to get a little more help.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Mary. I have another one. Somebody's asked a couple different questions, so I'm going to bunch them together because it's the same person. Before the webinar, this person asked, I'm interested to learn how to use heat pumps in conjunction with in-floor radiant heat. And then just a few minutes ago, they asked, are there particular local HVAC contractors who you've seen embrace heat pumps and install them well?
So
Mary,
for the
you can jump
radiant,
into it.
Yeah.
yeah, for the radiant heating, and this is in the appendix, you'll get this. There are good systems, but it's kind of a niche right now. So I would, if you want to combine the heat pump with radiant, these are the systems and these are the local people. I would actually start with Hans. He's probably does the most. These other folks are in Denver also. So these are the folks that have the most experience with it. So combining the heat pump with the radiant. Now, deciding to use mini splits, say for some of the second floor. And the nice thing then in that case is you can actually turn your radiant thermostats down in the second floor. Like you can use the mini splits for a lot of the heating for a lot of the years during the mild times, and then you can turn the radiant up a bit when it gets really cold. So you have that, you have these couple of strategies that you can employ. And there's a lot more contractors in the area familiar with the mini splits. So I would call these folks for combining the water, but mini splits, Mary has some lists and advice on that.
Right. We have a contractor list. So the best thing is to give Nikki or I a call and we'll help you. I mean, there is also a question. So in our territory, we have in-floor and then we have hydronic, which are baseboards along the floorboards. And so this equipment is, the heat pump equipment is above ground, and you're right, there is geothermal, what we call ground source heat pumps. What we found in our territory is that the ground, because we live in the Rocky Mountains, that ground source can be a little or very costly. We see them in the larger homes sometimes. So there is that option too. So you have air source, air to water, and ground source heat pumps now.
And I will say there are, if you want a list of people who really do a good job designing ground source, I would email me. And it's
They
really
used to have a
important.
company that did that.
Yeah, a long time ago. It's really important, the design and the high country. Ground source can do a great job, but there's factors, and the design means everything. So feel free to send me an email for that option.
And I have one more question here. Are there any concerns about total kilowatt load if the home is using a heat pump HVAC system, heat pump water heater, electric range, electric vehicle, etc.?
We love it. We love it. We love all electric.
I mean, you just need to make sure that your panel and everything, for a new home, you got to make sure your panel and everything's sized up correctly. If you're in an existing home, you do want to think about that. And like there's various strategies. For example, someone can look at your panel and you might be able to do air source heat pump heating, but you might not be able to do the water heater or the dryer. So, my advice if it's existing home is have an electrician come and take a look at things.
Right. As
And
far
then
as Holy
you
Cross
can prioritize.
Right. As far as Holy Cross is concerned, we can handle the load. As you guys know, we're going renewables, and there's going to be a lot of behavioral outreach. We just have a peak time payback today from 4 to 6 p.m. So if you don't know about that program, you can Google it on our website at holycross.com, where we'll give you money back for reducing your usage during these critical times. The load, so most homes are maybe 100 amps. So sometimes you might have to go up to 125 amps. So sometimes there might be a panel upgrade that will need to be done by an electrician, and that will be part of the cost of the project. That when you talk to a contractor, you might have to bring an electrician to see. Once they've done the load calculations, then electrician can submit that to our engineering department and let you know if we need to upgrade.
And the advantage of a new build, right, is that you can build your home to make all that work. And usually, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but usually you can implement this kind of all electric and this technology cheaper than you would if you're retrofitting something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Do it right the first time, as we say. And we do have solar rebates. So a lot of you, if you combined, an all electric home with solar and you've got good solar orientation, that's a really good win-win for everybody.
Definitely. Any last minute questions? Feel free to type them in the chat or the Q&A in the next minute or so. Otherwise, we're just going to say thank you all for coming. And Dave or Mary, did you have any last words or pieces of advice to say? I would just add that don't forget to check with all of us about rebates and incentives, whether it's a new construction or retrofit project. We can all help you, and we all have things available. Dave, can you show that sponsor slide at the end for me again, just so everybody can see?
Would be,
or that one. That's great. Yeah, thanks.
Don't take no from your builder, your HVAC guy. If you really want to explore this, you might not. They have good recommendations, and you might end up with their recommendations. But if you really want to explore the option, and they're like, forget it, talk to Mary, talk to Nikki. At least talk to someone else who's going to say, these are the options. And then you can go back to your builder and say, well, what about this? So, my experience is it's sometimes, depending on the builder and stuff, it takes a little bit of encouragement to at least allow you to consider the options.
Dave, we have one last minute question. I'll just let you answer it since we have a couple of minutes still. We are not in the new construction category. Our home is 19 years old, has hot water, radiant heat, and electric ducted AC. The AC is reaching the end of its useful life and needs to be replaced sometime in the near future.
So yeah, replacing the AC with a heat pump would be a great option because it's not going to cost you more. And then what you can do is use the heat pump for a lot of the heating, especially the mild seasons. And so the heat pump's going to, do the mild seasons, and you will have, now you've got these tools, you've got these options depending on gas or electricity. So it just gives you all the advantages, really. That's a great situation.
And you'll save on your from central air conditioning to heat pump, you'll save on your summer cooling bills for sure.
Oh yeah,
So-
if you have a 19-year-old air conditioner, it's probably like a SEER 10, which you're going to cut your cooling bill if you have much like by 40 to 50%.
Mhm.
It'll be a big
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
A lot of good news I feel like we've
Yeah.
heard today.
Yeah.
One last one for new construction at 9,200 feet elevation. What do you recommend? Final question.
That's a really tricky one. In fact, I'm working on something at 9,200 square feet.
Well, it's 9,200 elevation. We don't know the size of the house. So my
elevation,
opinion would
right.
be,
It's
so you could go, there's a really nice Bosch or Mitsubishi ducted heat pump system with the air handler. And that's going to
Well-
give you a really 3,500 square feet.
it
So,
depends if you have
at 9,200.
gas. I mean, if you have natural gas at that
No, it's new
elevation-
construction.
Well, I don't know if they have gas available or not. I would do a hybrid if you
No
don't
It
have-
gas.
says 3,500 square feet and
No
at
gas.
natural gas. They must have natural
Oh,
gas. going to the
natural
property.
gas? or
at
no
that
gas?
elevation and
Oh,
that,
no
I-
gas.
gas.
Nay gas.
no
I'm
gas.
trying to interpret this chat here.
So,
Um,
yeah. So it's
so-
an new all electric 3,500 square foot home.
Yeah, well, that you just gotta, okay, 3,500 square feet. Off the top of my head, my guess is you're gonna wanna have probably a system for the main floor and a system for the second floor. Because it depends, at that elevation, you have to derate the capacity of the equipment a lot. So that's my warning to you, or my advice is make sure the contractor really does a good job on derating in the design, because that's a really high, it's really cold. So you got to make sure that you've got enough capacity, and there's a reasonable chance, and it won't cost you a lot more for 3,500 square feet, that you might end up with, a system for the top floor, system for the main. But
And there's
that's
a
the
lot of
thing.
new
Yeah,
construction all electric that are
Right.
doing that. They
Right.
have a couple
We've seen
units.
it. Yeah.
And it
There's a lot of
works.
options, and we can give you some ideas if you just give us a contact, just
Yeah, if you
email
send the
at
email,
some
I can
point.
talk.
I will
And-
elaborate for you here. He says he does have natural gas to the property, even though this is new construction. And it's mostly one floor. So is there a better option, Dave, if there's natural gas already coming into the property?
Yeah, then you can consider the hybrid option. I think can you email, if you want to email us
Yes.
some of the stuff, that would be great, because offline
Right.
we can get into the nitty-gritty and give you
Right.
a lot better advice
Right.
on that. So
And-
like send the floor plans.
And the one
or
big advice, and the one big advice I give as you're building your new home, before they do drywall, after the insulation and air sealing's been done, they do a blower door. So that fan that depressurizes the house, because at 9,200, and if you want to go with electric heat or any kind of heat, the tighter the house, the less your energy bills are going to be. So to go and do a blower door during construction, once the installation is installed and you've air sealed, but before the drywall, so you can fix any problem, they'll go around, they'll do a blower door test with the infrared camera and tell you where the installation contractors missed. And it's a great thing to do in the middle of your construction.
Yeah,
Thanks,
so the
Mary.
design is paramount in your case. So please feel free to send us.
There's
the
so much
stuff.
information. We could go on forever. So
Yeah,
Feel free to email us and we can
yes,
send
yep.
that on to Dave if
we'll
you don't
help
have
you
his
as much as
email.
we can. Yep.
So we're past our time, and if there's any last minute questions, I know Dave will be happy to help you offline. So shoot us an email. We will be sending a follow-up email to all of you with the recording link and the slides. You're always welcome to share that recording link with anyone you'd like. So thanks for attending. Reach out to any of us if we can be of help. Have a
All
good
right.
night.
Thank you guys. Stay cool.
All right. I'm going to unshare.